Hey there, welcome to SaaS Unbound, brought to you by saas.group. I'm your host, Anna Nadeina, and this is the show where we chat with inspiring founders and experts to get an inside scoop on how they made their business a success. And today with me is Jakob Knutzen, CEO and co-founder of Butter, a modern video platform built for interactive and collaborative virtual workshops and meetings. They have received 2 Golden Kitty Awards from ProductHunt, a great feedback from the community, and they believe that every tech company out there will end up using Butter at some point. So I love the ambition and would love to talk about it today, what you're doing and how you're going to reach it. So welcome, Jakob. It's great to have you here.
It's so lovely to be here, Anna. Thank you so much for having me.
Perfect. Well, and honestly, like when I saw the name, I thought, oh my God, like because I love. There is nothing better on earth than just a fresh toast with butter. So I thought, okay, it's called Butter. Oh, no. This guy knows how to, have joy in life. So we've got to talk.
Totally. Like, every second lunch, I take a little bit of toast, just smother it with, big piece of Lurpak butter.
Okay, nice. We'll have to wrap up. I'm hungry now. But yeah, great name. Where did it come from?
So I think we were brainstorming about names in the beginning, and someone from our team said, "Oh yeah, it's like we're making meetings smooth as butter." And initially we were actually called Meat Butter then, okay. But that was just kind of weird because a lot of people thought it was like a chunk of meat and then butter, and that's just strange. So in early 21 we dropped the meat, so now then we just butter.
Okay, cool. That's perfect. Like perfect name. Okay, so let's maybe get into your background a little bit because I know it's not your first rodeo. There was a gaming, if I'm not mistaken, startup at first. So how did you get into startups in the first place, and what made you move eventually from gaming to workshops?
Yeah, so we say slightly longer story. Started my career in strategy consulting in Bain for close to 4 years, then moved to Indonesia of all places, where I started a digital marketing agency, or the local arm of a digital marketing agency there. So that was kind of my first foray into building something from the ground up, but it wasn't a product. It was more like a traditional style business, if you will. Got back to Denmark in 2018 and wanted to build something that was more scalable than, selling your services by the hour, which we did both in agency and consulting. And I was a big gamer. So I thought, hey, let's do something within gaming because that's awesome. Identified a problem within game streaming about content discovery. So started building a platform there. Got a great team together, many of whom are with me to this day. But we ultimately failed. In early 2020, January 2020, we shut down. And the big reason for that was simply not getting the problem right. So we didn't correctly understand which problems it was that our users had. And that was kind of what made it super clear. When we shut down, we stuck together as a founder team. So myself, my one co-founder, Adam, who was an engineer based in Bali. He's from Malaysia. And my other co-founder, Chris, who's a product designer by trade based in Denmark as well as I am. So we kind of stuck together. We had the hacker, the hipster, and the hustler trio, which is quite nice for building stuff, right? But wanted to be ultra clear on identifying the right problem. And that was why we built the previous company as a remote company, so we knew a lot of stuff about remote work and how to do things. And when COVID struck just 1 month after we shut down Streamcrux, as our previous company was called, we started doing workshops for these companies and teams that were suddenly pushed remotely by COVID, didn't know what the best practices for remote work were. And the idea was to, through those workshops, understand, hey, which big pain points is it, or which is it that the companies are truly experiencing now, and how can we build like a software solution around that? And that was when it really hit us that, I both in consulting and in agency, I'd done literally hundreds of physical workshops, but doing workshops online that was super difficult. Two big things was incredibly difficult there. One thing was the whole management of the workshop. Like we were using a lot of different tools like Miro, Mentimeter, opening breakouts, polls, you name it. And like half of my time in the workshop was spent just opening that stuff up instead of focusing on the participants and on, delivering the materials. The other part was that it was so hard to get people engaged. People were, sometimes camera off, they were leaning back, they were just not leaning in. And that just meant that the outcomes of the workshops were way, way worse. And that was kind of what got us to the idea of Butter. Let's build something. Let's build a tool that's just laser focused on online workshops and trainings and making them awesome.
Cool. Okay. So what was your favorite video game? What is your favorite video game?
Right now, I've been a big fan of the Blizzard games like StarCraft and Diablo way back. I'm pretty excited about the new Diablo 4 that's coming out. But aside from that, it's probably Total War Warhammer. That's pretty awesome. Huge strategy game. It makes me
okay. I don't know why I asked it. Those mean nothing to me.
I was also surprised you asked, but I'll roll with the punches.
Yeah. But yeah, great story. I mean, you knew the pain point and you decided to go for it. So perfect. Did the hustler, the engineer, and what was the other one?
Stay together. The hacker and the hipster. Yeah.
Right.
No, we're still together. I guess it makes me the hustler of the trio, right? And Chris is the hipster in product design, and Adam is the hacker with the engineer. So yeah, we still stay together, and like they're the most amazing team. Amazing people I've ever worked with, and Cheska, who's heading up our growth team, she joined in as kind of as a late exec team person. She's extraordinary as well. So we have like this really amazing leadership team with different skills and competencies, which is I feel very fortunate to kind of be a part of.
Perfect. Okay. So what about this one? Like, what did you do differently? That you realized with the previous startup, there was a failure in finding the problem. So how did you know that it's not just you that experienced this problem, but people actually want to solve something?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I mean, we're obsessed from the very beginning with understanding this because like we really felt burned after the last startup shutdown. It's like one of the most painful things that you can go through. So we like from the very beginning when we launched the first iteration of Butter in I think it was June of 2020, we did interviews. Like I think in the first half year, I personally interviewed between 300 and 500 people, and that was like anyone that was doing anything that kind of tasted of workshops. Could be consultants, coaches, trainers, design sprinters, people in learning and development. Anyone that was doing what we now have come to define as complex collaborative sessions, I spoke with them and tried to figure out. Not, hey, is this a problem you have? But I basically asked them, hey, can you talk me through your last workshop? What went well? What was painful? And try to really understand their workflows and understand which problems they faced and what kind of workarounds they tried to create around those problems. So especially the workarounds were incredibly important to identify, because if they hadn't even tried to identify a workaround, if they said, oh yeah, it's a huge problem, have you tried to fix it? Nah, not really. Then it wasn't really a problem, right? So went super deep into that. So that was what we did in the first half year. And I think since then, we've been doing a lot of things to continuously stay in touch with our users and with our community. We built a big community of facilitators, of workshop facilitators. We engage a lot with people in public on LinkedIn and everywhere where people talk about the product. I think I personally still speak with 10 to 15 users per week. So it's so important to continuously stay in touch and continuously understand which problem that you're currently solving.
Right. I feel like there could be just one problem when you were talking with people and asking them about the processes that they have at the moment. They tend to sugarcoat it a little bit. Like it's never easy to say, well, we're doing it, but it's not very good. Like you still try to kind of like say, oh no, we're doing a good job. We are a good team. And like, have you experienced that? Was it difficult to actually like crack people and into understanding that there is a problem?
Yeah, like 100%. And experience it all the time. You're very right in terms of sugarcoating. Either, actually, I'd say either one way or the other. Sometimes they sugarcoat to make them seem, as you say, not bumbling in terms of that particular problem. Sometimes they just exaggerate the problem and make it seem huge, right? But the best way of doing that has always been like, hey, just talk me through what happened last time. Be as objective as possible, at least based on their memory, that just talking them through their processes from, they start thinking about the workshop, then preparing them, inviting in the participants, the whole running of the workshop, talking through that those hours that it took, that flow. After the workshop, how did you collect all the materials? How did you send it out to whoever the participants were in the end? So like just making things as objective as possible has been the best way of stripping kind of all the fluff away from the chicken, as they say.
Right. Okay. And just one more question. You were saying like 300, 500 people only you talk to. And it's always a mystery. And I think a lot of founders ask that question, like, where do you get those people? Like, it's the, I think in sales, like it's the same problem. Like when your ticket is not high enough, people are not willing to talk with you, right? Because they're not going to spend their time unless they're paying like huge amounts of money to you. So how do you, as a startup founder, actually persuade people to talk to you? Where do you get them? It's not just your friends, right? And friends of friends, you kind of talk to them.
But I will say friends and friends of friends was a great place to start. Again, I'd been in consulting, I'd been in agency, so that was where I started. Like I reached out to anyone that I knew and I was, hey, like, I know you did workshops because I know you. Do you want to talk? And like, there you get a pretty high hit rate, right? Because they don't want to be douchebags, so they talk. So again, that was where I started out. And I think a very important point is if you don't even know where to start out, maybe you're attacking the wrong problem because you don't really know the space as well as you think. So that was like, it's a good litmus test kind of in starting out. But as we scaled the interviews, if you will, like honestly, it was just cold outreach on LinkedIn, right? So I connected with tons of people that had, those different titles: coach, facilitator, trainer, consultant, any title that could be construed as conducting workshops. And I reached out and said, hey, do you do online workshops? I'm trying to understand the space. Would you mind taking 30 minutes for an interview with me? And a certain percentage of those people said yes, because sometimes people like to be listened to. And I think that's where doing interviews is a bit different than sales. And maybe, there's a bit of an overlap. We overlapped interviews and sales a little bit, right? But overall, people, they want to help, and they were very curious, especially during that period. It was 2020, it was COVID, the world was really changing super, super fast, right? And I think the very fact that we were solving a real problem also made it much easier for people to talk about this, because a lot of people were really frustrated about doing these online workshops. All of their workflows had been totally shifted because they were used to doing them physical, and now suddenly they had to do them virtual. So people wanted to talk about this, which was a good indication that we were on to something. So overall, cold outreach on LinkedIn, ask people for their opinion. A large percentage will say yes.
Right. Okay. Awesome. Great experience. So while you were interviewing, was there a product in place already, or you were selling before there was anything?
I feel so fortunate working with an amazing team. I think Adam and Chris, they got like an MVP together in 3 weeks, like from the moment when we started talking about it till there was like something out there. 3 weeks went, something out in the market, something people could sign up to and use as a video conferencing tool. 3 weeks went by. So I was doing all of these interviews in Butter. And it was ugly as F, but it was working. And I was sending out an invite and people got into Butter. That was also where I said, like, we did a little bit of sales in the interview process, because, some people were like, this is interesting. Can you tell me, what does it do? And, I went through my spiel. But it was definitely cool to have built that product in the beginning to get that ongoing information. And I mean, while we were doing interviews, we were iterating all the time, right? So we were able to get opinions on the changes in the product very, very fast. So it was a magical time.
Right, but you also could start selling right away, which is perfect, I think, because if people are ready to solve this problem. They are ready to pay if they see the value in the product that you're doing, right? So, okay, spill the beans. How do you put a product on the market in 3 weeks? What did you use? I'm writing it down. I mean,
yeah.
everyone still can get a side hustle. So
yeah. No, I mean, it was a lot of hard work from especially from Chris and Adam, right? And I wouldn't even begin to know exactly what kind of, I forget which tech stack Adam used to build it. But again, the whole thing was just having some kind of idea, because we'd experienced the pain ourselves. So it wasn't like we didn't know what to build. We had some idea because we'd experienced the pain ourselves. And then just built it. Or Chris designed it and Adam built it. And that was kind of the level of the flow. But what actually happened was the first iteration we had was a mobile companion app, we called it, together with Zoom. So I think that was built in just 1 week with something that just kind of worked, where you could put a queue and you had a little agenda, and you could say when you were AFK for coffee or whatever. Like, it was pretty damn useless. And it turned out that was just such a stupid idea, because nobody wants an extra screen when they're like sitting on Zoom, and then they need an extra screen to look at. But what we then did was Adam found a video API, which is basically like something you can something you can very quickly spin up and use as a out of the box video conferencing tool. He found that, and then he slapped our mobile app, on the side of it. So you had the video API on one side, and then you just had our mobile app kind of enlarged to a desktop version on the side, and then suddenly, boom, you had the tool together. And that was when magic began happening, because the functionality that we built with for the mobile app together with actual video conferencing, that was where where we began finding, okay, there's really something happening here, we're onto something special. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, okay, so when you start a video conferencing coming to the market, right? There is, oh my God, is it even alive? Skype, Zoom, Google Meet. Those are, the big guys everyone's using, especially enterprise level. How did you ask people to try something new? What was the thing that tipped them off that this is different? This is something that is going to change their workflow, and actually put that sharp focus into the workshop or a meeting?
I think the first big thing we did was be extremely opinionated and specific on the fact that it was just workshops we were focusing on, right? Workshops and facilitators, and just using that language and people being able to see themselves, okay, like they're building for us. This is a tool for me. That was incredibly helpful from a communication perspective, right? And getting people to be curious enough to kind of test it out. Then it came down to both the way we built Butter as a tool where you're able to set up a lot of stuff beforehand, run the session, and then debrief the session all in one tool. Whereas Zoom, for instance, or Google Meet, they are almost utilities where, you start up something and then it's running, right? It's a call. It's not something where you can set up a ton of things beforehand. So that was where we began seeing that a lot of people began adopting the tool. Because they were able to set up all of these things beforehand. They felt, back to the whole problem that we were solving, they felt that suddenly they didn't need to spend half of their mind space just on handling the tools during the session, because all of those things, they'd set them up beforehand. So they could just, click buttons and run things when the session was running, and everything was just there. It was just in one window. For instance, one thing was Miro, right? You had to, beforehand, they had to send out links and people had to click it, and half of people would drop off. In Butter, they could it was already integrated. They could just click start Miro, and boom, Miro opened up directly in the video conferencing interface. People could just see it. They didn't need to log in. All of these things, when workshop facilitators that have felt those pains, they saw this, like magic happened. And they started using the product. Same with breakout rooms, for instance. Also a big feature that is used in a lot of workshops. Super clunky to use in a lot of tools. We had focused so much that breakout rooms had to be a must-win battle for us. That feature, we knew everyone in workshop needed it. So we had to build the best breakouts out there. And we did. So when people saw that, they were like, whoa, this is so cool. This is built for me. So back to the communication, and then just having a few must-win features where they really felt like, okay, wow, this is built for me. That was how we won against how we won. Well, we have definitely not won yet, but how we at least got the initial users in in the battle against the big video conferencing tools.
Okay, cool. All right. So love the energy here, and let's. You keep talking about communication and community, and I want to get there a little too, because feels like, well, you definitely won there. I mean, ProductHunt, you're the stars, right? Everyone knows in ProductHunt what butter is, what butter does. Why ProductHunt? What tipped you off that, this is your community, this is something that you have to pursue? And are there any other channels like ProductHunt that maybe not every startup uses, but that works like magic for you?
Yeah, so let's take why ProductHunt first. I think ProductHunt works extremely well, or that's at least my thesis, for I guess what's popularly known as prosumer products. So these kind of self-serve products that are normally used for B2B purposes, but work very much like consumer apps, right? Easy to sign up, easy to pick up and start using by yourself. And Butter is one of these. So that was what initially tipped us off, that, hey, like Butter, and Butter has we have a very opinionated brand, if you will.
Is it a Danish thing?
I mean, we're not even a Danish team, so it's like, I don't know. We're just having a lot of fun. But those things combined, so a product that kind of is a prosumer product, and it has a very clear branding, that tipped us off that, hey, maybe there's something special about ProductHunt. And it turned out, I mean, especially our first launch, now we launched several times in ProductHunt, but especially the first launch, kind of getting it out there to the world, was absolutely amazing on ProductHunt. We got so much love from users, got so many new users in, got tons of interest from investors as well, because it kind of put us on the map. So there's a lot of really great things there from the ProductHunt community, and I think it's an amazing community. It's a very big early adopter community, which is super cool for kind of getting people onto the platform that don't mind that you're not one of the big incumbents, right? And want to test out all the new stuff. So that was tremendously amazing. In terms of other channels, honestly, it's super hard. And I do think ProductHunt is one of those things that have decreasing returns. As you know, we've launched 3 times now, and we can definitely see decreasing returns of launching, because it's just not the novelty factor anymore. I do think that communities on, for instance, LinkedIn, like not open but closed communities on LinkedIn, is something we've seen a lot of success with as well. Basically becoming part of very specific communities around, say, facilitation or remote work, and posting Butter there. So that's been extremely helpful in terms of growth channels. Influencers as well, reviewers. We had a lot of growth from, especially during COVID, where everyone wanted to check out new video conferencing tools, from like YouTubers that were doing reviews of different types of video conferencing tools. So that was a very big channel for us as well, for acquisition, if that's what you mean.
Yeah, right. No, and I want to come back to ProductHunt and what you said about early adopters. And this is exactly what I thought. Like, ProductHunt is great when it's new. Everyone wants it. But then it is kind of difficult. They're early product junkies, right? They just want everything that's new. So yeah, obviously, like, some of them end up loving the product and stay with you. But I feel like ProductHunt is mostly made for, just try new things.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think some products, including ours, got quite a lot out of ProductHunt. But even with us, like, our metrics were super messy. Like, in months after that, like, our retention cohorts looked like crap, to be perfectly honest, because a lot of people were just in there, like, as someone from our team called them, like, tire kickers, right? I mean, they were just in there to test out, hey, what is this? But it wasn't really their use case. I think that's also the curse of having a product like ours, which is reasonably attractive. The landing page is interesting. It makes you want to sign up. We have pretty high sign-up rates there, but we have very large drop-off rates after sign-up in terms of activation, because people who don't do workshops, who don't need all of these tools for their complex collaborative sessions, who just want a fun video conferencing tool. They just don't find enough value in Butter to kind of validate our price point or use it enough, right? So getting a lot of early adopters in from Product Hunt that might not be our pure target audience, that might not actually do workshops, it really messes up your metrics, because they're not the people that you actually want in your product, or that you want a ton of feedback from, for at least not for that particular use case, if that makes sense.
Right. Okay. But, still for a lot of people, Product Hunt is just, a holy grail. Everyone wants to be there. Everyone wants to become the product of the day. So did you do anything to prepare for the launch there? Was it, I don't know, some great campaign that you launched?
I think, there are two things that's always connected when you do a Product Hunt launch. The first is community, and the second is content, right? Community means several things. It means your own community. You need to activate your own community of users, of fans, of investors, whoever is kind of in your court. You need to activate them and make sure they go and support you on Product Hunt on the day. So that is a big thing. Other parts of communities, the Product Hunt community itself, right? That you need to make sure that you engage them, and that you comment on your post when you launch, that you're very active there. All the new people that are coming into the product on the day, that you're very helpful for people that are in there on the day, right? So you really need to be on during that day, and preparing that, and interspacing, for instance, making sure that your emails goes out at different times of the day, depending on where your users are based, to make sure you get the maximum out of your community. Like, all of these things take a lot of preparation. By the way, we prepared roughly a month before each of our launches. The second thing is content, which it relates to, of course, the content on the Product Hunt post itself, but also content on your socials, right? Or content in your newsletter, or we did the first Product Hunt launch, we did a workshop fest, or like a big series of workshops on the day where people could pop in, right? So prepping all of these things took a lot of time, but it was definitely worthwhile. Yeah.
Cool. Sounds really interesting though. Mostly just people make sure that they stay on the page 24 hours, and just don't miss any comments. So from Product Hunt, from that early adoption community, where do you go next? Like, what is the next biggest acquisition channel for you?
Like, the biggest acquisition channel for us is Butter. We're very much, what you'd call a product-led growth company, right? And we're seeing somewhere between 30 and 35% of all of the users that sign up to Butter have been in a Butter session before. So that's a rather large percentage, and we're seeing a very large percentage of the remaining 65 to 70%. They have learned about Butter from word of mouth. So our big acquisition channels are these product growth, viral acquisition channels. Some of them are built into the product itself, where we have a lot of ways to kind of encourage people to sign up after they've been part of a session. Other parts are more easily shareable content that makes it, like, for instance, when a Butter session has taken place and you've recorded it, like, we generate GIFs that you can share of that session, and people have loved those short GIFs that they then share everywhere on their socials, and then people see it and they sign up to Butter because they're like, oh, this is pretty cool, right? So our biggest acquisition channel is our product growth loops that we built into the product itself.
Perfect. Okay. And after when you were talking about Product Hunt, you also said that it put you on the map for the investors. So that's also something that I wanted to touch upon. So why not bootstrapping? Cool product, the community loves it. Why go to the investors?
So you also mentioned a very important point before, Anna, right? I mean, that's who we're up against. So we're very much like, we don't look too much at other startups when we think about who we're competing against. We look, and not because they're not excellent. There are amazing startups out there that are theoretically doing the same as us. But the really big ones that we encounter are the big three, which is Zoom, Meet, and Teams. Those are the ones that we need to replace for this particular use case. And to truly do that, we need to have enough funding to build a big enough team, especially on the tech and product side, to have a product that is competitive. Video conferencing is incredibly expensive to make, and I think I've been surprised at just how expensive it is to build a stable, scalable video conferencing product. So we need venture capital to do that. In general, kind of the deciding factor on whether, at least my thinking of the deciding factor of bootstrapping versus venture has been, what is your competition doing? If all of your competitions are either huge incumbents it's two things. It's competition and it's ambition. If all of your competition is big incumbents or VC funded startups, then you need to be VC funded as well to be able to compete. Either it's on the tech side of things or it's on the marketing side of things. You'll get totally run over if you don't do that. The second is the level of ambition. Again, with Butter, we want to build the product for synchronous remote collaboration. And that's a pretty damn freaking huge ambition. And, I'd be sad if by the end of this decade, Butter is not used in tens, if not hundreds of millions of homes. So that's then with both a very tough VC funded competition, all very big incumbents, and a very high level of ambition. VC funding is the only way to go for us. Although I wish I could bootstrap.
All right, and all the best with it. I mean, nothing's wrong with going to the VCs. I was just curious because some are just very stubborn on being super independent in growing the startup.
And I think it's incredibly important to realize why you want to do VC funding, because for a lot of people, it just seems like the default mode. It's like, oh yeah, we're building a startup. That's what we need to do. But if you just default to that, if you don't question it, then you might be doing something wrong, right? Or if you do it because, oh yeah, it looks really cool to my friends that I raised a lot of money, or that my company is worth a lot on paper, right? I mean, as you say, like the freedom of being bootstrapped, I can really envy those founders sometimes, because there is a, not necessarily from, by VCs having a lot of control over you, but just by the simple thing of taking VC money, you say, okay, yes, I commit to making this a huge, like $1 billion company. That's like, right. That's what you commit to. This needs to be a $1 billion company. And that's a big commitment, right? In terms of time and life and energy and whatever.
Right. Okay. It seems like you definitely put a lot of thought in it, and that's great. Like you said, not a lot of founders just go into that headspace where you actually think about like why you would need VC money. And now it's just way too, I guess it's just way too difficult, so you don't go there.
Yeah, actually.
But yeah, no, not really. But anyway. Right. Another question that I wanted to ask is about the fact that, COVID is kind of gone. Well, I got it a couple weeks ago, so not completely.
I'm sorry to hear that. Oh, it still sucks. Yeah.
Yeah, still sucks. Still there. Come on. So people are going to the offices, and a lot of companies somehow are still, despite the statistics that, there's nothing wrong with the efficiency, we are doing the same kind of revenue or even more while working remotely. They're still kind of pushing people back to the office. So what do you think about that? And is it going to somehow affect all the video conferencing tools like Butter?
Oh, well, those were a lot of questions in one. So I think they're too big. So they're both reasons why people should go back to office, and reasons why bosses want to get people back to office. I'm not going to comment on the bosses part because there's obviously a lot of reasons why people think that they want more control there. But I think that the two big reasons that I continue to hear is, one is social and culture, that it is more difficult to build social and culture when you're doing things remotely. And I mean, I definitely agree. You have to be way, way more mindful when building social and culture when you're doing it remotely. It can definitely be done though. And it just requires significantly more effort. So that's one big reason we're seeing it. The other big reason, which is what we're solving with Butter, is the reason of collaboration. Like a lot of people, they want to go back to the office because then I can really brainstorm. I can go up to the whiteboard and I can sit here, I can chat. It's just super helpful. And I can only do that when I can see people and really feel them, right? And that's one of the things that we want to solve with Butter, because yes, I agree that that's a problem at the moment, synchronous remote collaboration, and that's definitely something that I don't think should be a problem 5 to 10 years down the line. In terms of whether this affects video conferencing tools, yes, I think so. But I mean, if you look at a graph of like video conferencing going upwards before COVID, yeah, it was nice and it was going upwards, trending upwards, things were nice, right? But COVID just freaking shifted that graph up to 80-90% of all work, right? And now it dropped down to maybe 50% of all work being done via video conferencing, or even 40%. But it still parallel shifted that graph up so momentously that the world today in 23 is very different than the world in 19, right? And we're at a much, much higher, like many times over higher usage of video conferencing tools that we were beforehand. So definitely bullish on that.
Right. So where do you stand in Butter within the company, and just overall, asynchronous or synchronous as much as possible, or just when it's absolutely necessary?
So I think it is a big bugbear of mine. A lot of remote companies, they say, oh yes, we just need to do async all the time, only async. I think what one should think of is why are you using a particular form of communication? What are you communicating around right now? So if you are documenting stuff, or if you're one-way communicating things, I'm a huge async fan. Like, again, we do the majority of our communications, for instance, from me to the team or from team members internally. We do that on Notion with memos or through Loom videos. Really great stuff. But if you are, say, collaborating or brainstorming and trying to put something together, then synchronous is very often the best way to go around things, because you can build upon each other's idea way faster, and you can make decisions much faster. Very often combined with, a pre-read or something like async that is there, that has briefed everyone beforehand. So I think that I stand squarely on using the best form of communication for the best time, and just being very conscious about whether you choose async or sync for any types of communication.
Right. And I think there are now tools, and tell me if that's also something that maybe you're working on. There are async video conferencing tools, right? When you, I don't even know how it should work, but it sounds kind of, I don't know, like still going and looking into like pre-recorded videos. So it's still not, I don't know.
It doesn't feel like the same, right? Yeah. I mean, I do think like it's not something we're working on, by the way. I'm very open on that, right? I think people like it can be fine for a briefing, right? But again, it's a one-way communication tool. It's not a two-way communication tool, and that's what people need to.
No, I think like there is a way to like somehow like you communicate with the chat, right? Sorry, exactly. With the chatbot.
Yeah, delayed chat or an email or
yeah. But yeah, like you said, like maybe it can be done differently. Maybe I don't understand something, but it's a cool concept. And like you said, maybe for like a briefing, it's perfect, right? Yeah. You need some kind of, you need to see the person, like their emotions towards this. But the fact that you're still not kind of collaborating with the person, you're not getting feedback right away. That kind of makes it like more one way than two ways.
Exactly. And I mean, one example of this was right before this chatting with you here. And I was recording our strategy update to the entire team. And I was doing that with, a Google slide deck and a Loom video where I speak over the slide deck, sent that out to them. And tomorrow we'll have a town hall where there's a Q&A section included, right? So the idea is that people can watch this. There's no reason for me to sit synchronously during the town hall and talk through all of this. People can watch this on their own time. But tomorrow during the town hall, I'm able to take all of these questions and people have the time to, before the town hall, think through the questions that they want to ask. So that's one way that we're, for instance, dealing with this async communication.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, I have just a couple more questions. And the first one is the same for absolutely every founder. What's the biggest win and biggest failure so far?
Yeah. Take failure first.
Okay. And then we'll butter it up with the win.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's, I mean, come on, it's always end on a high on that one, right? We have so many failures, Anna. Like seriously, and I think it's so fucking hard to be a founder. Like it's insane. I'd say like one thing I would highlight that was a bit painful, and especially I thought I was immune to it, but I wasn't. Like that was prematurely scaling the team. Again, we raised a nice seed round. We raised quite a bit of money. We thought that we were growing faster. We were able to grow faster than reality kind of was able to support. And that's painful because when you prematurely scale a team, you need to take the consequences of that, right? And honestly, it's never nice to let people go, and it's never nice to spend a ton of cash on people that you figure out that you actually didn't really need or weren't able to help you out at that stage at all. Now our team is actually smaller than it was 1 year ago, and we're moving much faster. That's good, but I would say that's the biggest failure. Okay. My biggest win, that is again related to the team. Like I'm so in awe of these people that we managed to bring together and these people that we're building this with. It's not just like, one thing is getting talented people. Of course, there are many talented people out here, but having extremely emotionally open people that are, able to create a space of psychological safety, where you can talk about a lot of things. And especially, I think, as a team as a whole, that's very true, but also as a leadership team in Butter, like, it's amazing to be able to share the tough times and the fun times together with these extremely talented, wonderful human beings.
Okay, that sounds beautiful. I love how, lately it's such a, I don't want to say trend, but just a great shift when founders do not just talk about the numbers and, how much money they raised. It's, we are working with the people, for the people, building the great culture. So that's amazing. All right. And the last one is just out there. Just want to know your opinion because so much is happening. I mean, I feel like time sped up a lot the last couple of years. So just everything's kind of like just happening here and there every week. So what do you think of all the things that's happened, even just in 2023, will have the biggest effect on SaaS businesses?
I mean, I could be boring and say AI because I think that it's AI.
Okay, that's a popular answer.
I do think that, like, it is for sure the thing that will have the most long-lasting effect, and I think we've only just seen the tip of it. I think other things that I personally also like very much is the frugality or the lack of cash. It pushes people to create healthier businesses that fundamentally solve problems, and where people think about solving the problem for users very early on, because you need to create value, because you need to make revenue from a very early stage. So I think that's another big shift that I personally think is very much for the better, even if it hurts as a founder not being able to raise on crazy valuations anymore. It's still, at the end of the day, I think it'll be healthier businesses that come out of it that will be building, and it'll be better products for the end user that's built.
Okay, interesting. All right, well, thanks for sharing your opinion. That's great. So Jakob, it's been amazing talking with you. I think what you're doing with Butter is great. Love how you're building a community. Love what you're talking about on podcasts. I watched a couple of previous ones, so maybe we'll one more today. But thanks for great content and full honesty, full transparency about founder's journey.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for the lovely questions. They were awesome, Anna.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Thank you. That buttered my day. Thank you so much.
Great.
And take care.
Thanks, Anna.